the cold and aloof goddess boss called me to her office. I thought she had discovered that I secretly had a crush on her. Unexpectedly, the goddess boss asked me to pretend to be her boyfriend, to accompany her to meet her parents. All meals and accommodations were included, 500 a day. Along the way, I secretly glanced at Liu Ryan's profile. Her nose was high and delicate, her lips slightly pursed, her long eyelashes fluttered like a gentle breeze. For a moment, I felt like it was all unreal. I couldn't believe I was actually going to meet Liu Ryan's parents. After more than 6 hours of driving, we arrived at a villa district. The security guard at the entrance saw Ryan, greeted her, raised the barrier, and let us through. I looked at her in astonishment. Ryan seemed a little embarrassed by my stare. She quickly explained, "Stop looking. I never said my family was poor." About the mental distress compensation, I'd like to discuss that with you again. How promising! Ryan laughed and playfully punched my shoulder. I followed her into the villa, carrying bags full of gifts. The interior was in traditional Chinese style, with mahogany furniture, classical and elegant. The incense burning inside bent with the wind. "Is this the boyfriend you found?" A refined middle-aged man sat at a stone tea table brewing tea. "Yes, we've been together since college." "What does he do?" "He's my business partner." "Is he mute? Can't he speak for himself?" Uncle Liu finally looked up and cast a disdainful glance at me. "Hello, Uncle Liu. My name is Chu Yunfei. I'm Ryan's college classmate, and now we're starting a business together." I placed the gifts in the entryway. With great respect, I bowed deeply to Uncle Liu. "You can see it yourself. You and Ryan don't belong to the same world. You two are not suited for each other." Uncle Liu took a sip of tea and continued speaking. "Ryan, tomorrow go meet your Uncle Ma's son." "And who is this Uncle Ma? Another partner you can't seem to shake off?" Ryan shot a disdainful glance at Uncle Liu. Uncle Liu ignored her and kept brewing his tea with calm precision. "Old Liu, how about I steam some fish for you tonight?" A young woman's voice came from the kitchen, her tone slightly playful and sweet. Ryan glanced toward the kitchen, rolling her eyes. "I'm not your only daughter. Why don't you save that affection for the child of your mistress?" I should have acted like I never had you as a daughter. "Don't even think about getting a penny from me. Get out of my sight." A teacup shattered at our feet. "Huh, like you've taken care of me all these years." Ryan's hands clenched into fists, slightly trembling. I wrapped her hands in mine. Then I spoke up. "Uncle Liu, Ryan and I have been together since college. I always thought she was an orphan." I paused for a moment. Uncle Liu's hand, pouring tea, froze midair. Before he could speak, I continued, "Now I finally understand. Uncle, rest assured. As long as I'm by Ryan's side, she won't do anything she doesn't want to do. I love her and am willing to give everything for her. We'll live a good life together. We don't need your filthy money." After saying everything in one breath, I grabbed Ryan's hand and quickly left the villa. "Get out and don't ever come back." In front of the car door, I looked down and saw our 10 fingers interlocked. Blood rushed to my head in an instant. Awkwardly, I whistled, glancing around, pretending to casually let go of her hand. But my palm was already slaked with sweat. "Sorry about that." In the car, Ryan's eyes were red as she tucked her hair behind her ear. Slightly apologetic, she said, "The only way the boss knows how to apologize." Ryan turned her head, her big eyes filled with confusion. "More money." I looked at Liu Ryan with a sincere expression. She laughed and playfully punched me on the shoulder. "You only ever think about more money. What do you need so much money for, you bachelor?" "To get married, of course. With housing prices so high, I need to save up for a wedding fund." Ryan playfully hit me a few more times. "Hey, if you keep hitting me, I'll call the cops." I joked, dodging while pretending to be serious. The tears in Ryan's eyes had been welling up for a while. But in the end, they finally fell. They fell right into my heart. How about borrowing this brother's shoulder for a while? I sat up straight, patting my shoulder, looking at Ryan with a noble, self-sacrificing air. How much? Let me see if I can afford it. Ryan burst out laughing through her tears. Teasing. For others. 1 million, 10 million, it's never too much. But for you, even if you didn't give me a penny, it would be fine. A hand reached out, about to touch my face. I wanted to grab that hand tightly, but uncontrollably my mind flashed too. The scene of Ryan and me becoming strangers flashed before my eyes. Just a second before her hand touched me, I decided to lean back, pressing my back tightly against the car door. In Ryan's eyes, I must have looked like a virtuous man about to be overpowered. Ryan couldn't hold back any longer and burst into laughter. Feeling better, boss? I asked softly. Ryan nodded slightly. I got out of the car and opened the driver's side door. Let's switch places. I'll take you to eat something delicious. In the car, I tried my best to joke around, even going as far as telling her about how, in elementary school, I once wet the bed and left a perfectly round stain. But both of us, with mutual understanding, never brought up my heartfelt confession from earlier. The car stopped in front of a barbecue restaurant, right behind Ryan's high school. This place, you know it? Ryan asked in surprise. I smiled, nodding with narrowed eyes. This was Ryan's favorite little spot. A small, unassuming joint that had been around for over a decade. I had come here alone once, and even found the sticky note Ryan had written years ago on the wall of wishes. A blank piece of paper, with nothing but Ryan's signature and the date. Back then, she probably didn't even dare to make a wish. The meat sizzled on the grill, filling the air with its aroma. When Ryan reached out to turn the meat, I gently patted her hand. She pouted in dissatisfaction, looking at me, and my foolish heart skipped a beat. A splash of oil landed on my hand, and only then did I realize the pain. To hide my embarrassment, I smiled and picked up a big piece of meat, placing it on Ryan's plate. Try what I grilled, sis. The meat on Ryan's plate had already piled into a small mountain. It only made things more awkward. She glanced at the plate, then back at me. I awkwardly scratched my head, then focused again on my role as the grill master. Ryan picked up a piece of meat, took a bite, and said, "This one's good." She then offered the piece of meat to me. I closed my eyes, steeling myself as I opened my mouth wide and ate it. Boss, bring a round of beers. I opened my eyes to see Ryan raising her hand, shouting to the owner, "Make them cold." He didn't forget to add, "You're on your period. Drink less, boss." Not cold then. Through the smoke, this girl in her business suit, with her impeccable makeup, slowly transformed into the girl I first met, back when we started college. I had noticed her immediately. She was dragging a huge woven sack, big enough to fit her inside, handling enrollment and applying for student loans all on her own. She was beautiful, and a lot of unsavory types surrounded her. I was one of them too. Hey, what are you thinking about? Come on, drink up, let's toast away the awkwardness. It felt like the incident at the villa had never happened. As we clinked glasses, we were just good partners in business again. When we left the restaurant, the sky was completely dark. Ryan had drunk too much, and she leaned her entire body against me. I held her with one hand, while handing my ID card to the hotel front desk with the other. The receptionist looked at me with suspicion, as if ready to call the police at any moment. Seeing Ryan in her sleek, professional outfit, and then looking at me in my budget Taobao clothes, I couldn't blame them. Their gaze fit my current state perfectly. In the elevator, Ryan nestled entirely in my arms. A faint fragrance filled the air, making me greedily want to take a few more breaths. I half carried her, stumbling to the room door. The few steps from the elevator to the door felt like an eternity. I had to support her, but I didn't know where to place my hands. Finally, we reached the door. I pulled out the room key and unlocked it, one hand holding her, the other closing the door. Click just as the door shut. Ryan crossed her arms around my shoulders. Because of the alcohol, her face was flushed. Her eyes were closed, lost in a daze, and her long eyelashes fluttered with every breath. She leaned her whole body against me now, her warm breath tickling my neck, hot and itchy. For a moment, I felt like my blood was boiling all over, rushing upward. I couldn't help but let out a low growl. Liu, Ryan, do you even know what you're doing? I grabbed her shoulders with both hands, pulling her away just enough. I didn't want her to notice the change in me. Bending over, in an awkward and bizarre position, I tossed her onto the bed. After tucking her in, I quickly left the room. One more second, and I was afraid I might transform into a wolf under the full moon. I tossed and turned all night, with Ryan's image, drunk and lying in my arms, constantly flashing through my mind. Just thinking about it, I'd get a reaction. I ended up taking 3 cold showers throughout the night. I always thought of myself as a pure-hearted warrior of love. But at over 20 years old, I never imagined I'd still be overcome by these primal urges. After another cold shower, I took several deep breaths before knocking on Ryan's door. I knocked for a few minutes before she lazily came to open it. She didn't even ask who it was, just sleepily stumbled over to the door to let me in. The moment she opened the door, I caught a glimpse of her wearing only a shirt. I yelled out in shock, slamming the door shut with force. Liu, Ryan, for heaven's sake, put on some clothes. I was so furious my chest hurt from the heavy breathing. What on earth was she thinking? Acting like this every day? Even if she publicly declared me her male best friend. I'm still a man. A young, hot-blooded guy. I took deep breaths over and over, trying to distract myself by thinking about the unfinished achievements in my games, the mounts I hadn't collected, the figurines still on their way, the fish I couldn't catch. But the more I tried to think of something else, the more vividly Ryan's soft, sweet appearance kept reappearing in my mind. I really wanted to pull her into my arms. Maybe I should just go all in, confess everything and tell her I've liked her since the first moment I saw her in college. Just to be near her. Wherever she worked part-time, I would follow and work there too. No matter where she was. I made sure I was always within 100 meters of her. But I still didn't have the courage to confess. After all, there was the cautionary tale of Gmido. That guy confessed to Ryan in our 3rd year of college. And after being rejected, they never spoke to each other again for the rest of university. One had tested the waters with her many times during school. Asking hypothetically, what if a friend confessed their feelings to you? How would you react if you rejected them? She said she had a fear of close relationships. I've always known, if my confession failed, I wouldn't be able to stay by her side anymore. I comforted myself, telling myself that being her best male friend was good enough. Back in high school, I had the image of a high-status, wealthy, and handsome guy. There were swarms of fangirls around me. Even in college, there were girls confessing their feelings to me. Some even offered to help pay off my student loans. That scared me, and I quickly turned them down. After all, I was working and studying part-time, and couldn't afford to drop my hardworking student persona. All I wanted was to stay by Ryan's side, no matter what identity I had to assume. The story between Liu, Ryan, and me started back in our freshman year. I admit it was attraction at first sight. I couldn't help but let my eyes drift toward her. She was always so cold to everyone, preferring to be alone. Right after military training ended, she found a part-time job in the school cafeteria. There was no salary, but it came with 2 free meals a day. She also took on some flyer distribution work for training centers, keeping herself busy every day. Thick-skinned, I treated her to a lemon water from Chang. I shamelessly begged her to let me earn money with her. She gave me a once-over, her eyes landing on my Adidas sneakers. My mind raced. Oh, these, I got them on Pinduoduo. Nice, right? Only $30 with free shipping. After a brief moment of silence, I finally got the goddess's WeChat. From that day on, I became Liu Ryan's little sidekick. Boss, any gigs this weekend? Boss, what time do you finish work? I'll come pick you up. Thanks to my relentless efforts, when the Student Aid Awards were announced in sophomore year, I was unexpectedly listed. I even went on stage to gracefully decline it. The counselor thought I was just being modest. In the end, I had to sneak over to him later and boast a bit. He gave me that knowing look, as if he understood everything. From then on, whenever there were class activities, whenever we had to form groups, the counselor would always accidentally put me in the same group as Liu Ryan. Even though I was the closest person to Ryan in the whole class, she still maintained a sense of distance. I never knew much about her. When we filled out family forms, she marked deceased under the mother's column and left the father's column blank. I always thought she was an orphan. Who would have thought she was actually a rich second-generation heir? Along the drive, I kept stealing glances at Ryan. She was napping in the passenger seat. My mind kept replaying the events from yesterday. Ryan's father must have cheated, and their relationship seemed really strained. Even in her sleep, it showed. Ryan's brow was furrowed, and I wished I could solve all the things that troubled her. When Monday came around at work, none of my colleagues knew I had pretended to be the boss's boyfriend and gone to her hometown. After the morning meeting, they all started complaining to me. Did the boss get rejected on a date over the weekend? She looks like she's ready to kill someone. I felt the same way. She had that stern look the entire time. I was so terrified during my progress report, I didn't dare breathe. Shujie, you're close with the boss. What's going on with her? A few people surrounded me in the break room, fishing for gossip. I glared at them. Get back to work. After sending this nosy bunch away, I glanced at Ryan's office, quietly grabbed my coffee, and returned to my desk. Shujie Zili smiled sycophantically next to me. Brother, could you take this document to the boss for her to sign? Why don't you go? I shot him an angry look. I'm too scared to. Please, I'm begging you. I'll buy you drinks tonight. Fine, I said, grabbing the document and heading to knock on Ryan's office door. Liu Ryan's aura was definitely that of a top-tier boss, commanding respect without needing to show anger. Even someone like Zili, a 6-foot-tall guy from Shandong, wouldn't dare get too close. When I walked in, I saw Ryan on the phone. Thank you, Uncle Ma. Of course, I'll play the perfect host when you return. Don't worry, I've got everything covered. Ryan's tone was soft, her smile blooming like a flower. No wonder she's my goddess. Even if she was the Grim Reaper this morning. Yet, the moment she picks up a client's call, she can instantly transform into a soft and gentle little bunny. Ryan gestured for me to sit on the couch. She exchanged a few more pleasantries, and then hung up the phone. Boss, I need you to sign this. But Ryan didn't respond to me right away. Instead, she walked over and closed the office door. As she turned around, she adjusted her shirt. But when I looked closely, it wasn't just a simple adjustment. She had undone a button, where before I could barely see her collarbone. Now I could see the tassel of the necklace hanging on her chest. My mind buzzed, and everything in front of me blurred. She walked over slowly, brushing her hair aside. With that motion, the collar of her shirt opened even more. Nervously, I turned my head away. Ryan sat down beside me. When I opened my eyes, she was right next to me, close enough to touch. Where? Ryan asked as she took the document from my hand. I could feel her arm brushing against mine. The scent of her woodsy perfume filled my nose. I stammered, "Here." Ryan's voice lifted slightly, teasing, The folder lay open between the two of us. Here. I quickly pointed to where she needed to sign. Alright, Ryan said softly as she signed, then closed the pen. She handed the document back to me. Thank you, boss. I hurriedly fled her office, flustered. Chuje, are you okay? Ziji asked, taking the document from me, concerned. I'm fine. Just startled, I muttered. The entire day, I couldn't calm down. Every time I thought about the way Ryan looked earlier. My heart couldn't help but race. That night, I went home and grabbed a few beers, wondering if I should confess. The memory of Jimaibo's failure still left me uneasy, and Ryan's words about possibly staying single forever made it even harder for me to figure out how to approach her. Then there was the fact that I had been pretending to be poor, relying on her for help. How was I supposed to say, by the way, the biggest client of our company is actually my dad? The truth was, I'd shamelessly stuck by her side all these years because I was attracted to her. Thinking back to Jimaibo's complete defeat after confessing his feelings, I was still afraid. Even though I had no official title now, at least I was her certified male best friend. After a few beers, I started feeling tipsy when an unfamiliar number called. Hello, who is this? I politely answered the phone. I'm your dad. I'm your grandpa. Be good, son. Your dad's back. Jimaibo's voice came through the receiver, still as obnoxious as it was during our school days. Son, you miss me? There's nothing for you in the US. This whole who's the daddy thing was a never-ending argument between me and Jimaibo. Back for a blind date? Haha. Which unlucky girl got stuck with you? I couldn't imagine what kind of girl would take a chance on Jimaibo, the hopeless romantic who got rejected by Ryan. You'll find out soon enough. Just letting you know your dad's back in town. Fine, I'll treat you too. A drink when you're back. But to my surprise, the next day, I ran into Jimaibo at the company. He waved at me briefly, and then slipped right into Liu Ryan's office. No way, was Jimaibo talking about Ryan being his blind date? Damn it, Jimaibo, you backstabber. How could you do this to me? I kept my eyes glued to Ryan's office door. Chuje, I looked up to see Z Lee. You poked a hole through the contract. That's when I realized I had pressed too hard, and the contract on the desk had been punctured. Chuje, I heard the new client is the boss's blind date. The boss's son is supposed to be seeing our boss. If it works out, won't our company become some cushy retirement gig? Our boss really knows how to hustle. Huh? Am I right? I didn't respond. I gave them all a cold, sharp glance. Finally, they shut up. But I could still hear them whispering. A woman like the boss is way out of reach for us regular workers. Poor Chuje, losing before he even had a chance. I bet the boss ends up with Chuje. If I win, you all buy me milk tea for a month. If I lose, I'll buy you all milk tea for a month. I'm afraid your paycheck won't cover that. Let me tell you something. Women don't just choose men based on looks. Sure, Chuje is more handsome than Liuje, but overall, he's just not at the same level. I could only pretend I didn't hear them. Overall level? Maybe I should just throw some cash around and buy the whole company. Finally, I saw the two of them, laughing and chatting, step out of the office. Ryan stood at the front and clapped her hands a few times. Everyone stopped what they were doing. All eyes turned in unison. Let me introduce someone, Ryan said. This is our new sales director, Jimaibo. Let's give him a warm welcome. After the brief welcoming ceremony, I cornered Jimaibo in the bathroom. Damn it, I said through gritted teeth. Is your blind date Ryan? Yeah, my dad set it up, he replied. I didn't want to come back at first, but when my dad said it was our college classmate, Liu Ryan, I took the first flight back overnight. Jimaibo's smug face made my blood boil. Son, don't you think Ryan and I are meant to be? She rejected me in college, but here we are again, still me. God damn you, I cursed through clenched teeth, my fist flying at him. Just because you're not chasing her doesn't mean no one else can. Are you crazy? Jimaibo wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth. We're brothers, so I'll let you get away with these 3 punches. But if you hit me again, I'll fight back. Before I could throw another punch, someone knocked on the bathroom door. Jimaibo opened it, gave me a glare, and walked out. The scene was so familiar. Back in sophomore year, Jimaibo had once said while watching TV that the actress Dudu looked just like Ryan. At the time, I didn't know why, but my fists had flown at him then too. Looking back now, I realize it was the feeling of someone else coveting what I had always cared about. Jimaibo had basically turned into Ryan's shadow at the company. I really wanted to find Jimaibo. As long as I kept an eye on Ryan, I'd be fine. Every day at 4 p.m., Jimaibo ordered milk tea for everyone. He had won over the crowd in no time. Handsome, wealthy, and even bringing in big clients for the company. Our company was indeed preparing for the next round of bidding with G-Shai Group. I used to be the hardest working employee here. Knowing that Ryan was waiting for me at the office, I practically wanted to live at work. Now I was even more desperate to stay at the company because I had to keep an eye on Ryan every night. I found random excuses to call or text her, making up problems, acting like I was deeply concerned about the company. Eventually, Ryan couldn't stand it anymore. After the Monday meeting, she stopped me. If you keep calling me in the middle of the night for nonsense, I'll deduct your pay. She snapped, and I instantly shut my mouth. Why did her tone suddenly sound a little shy? I'm doing it all for the company, I muttered. You did promise me stock options. Or are you planning to run the company into the ground and then marry into a wealthy family? I got a little emotional, and my voice was louder than usual. What are you all looking at? Get back to work. I glared around the room. If looks could kill, they would all be dead by now. I angrily returned to my desk, pulled out my stress relief toy, a squishy little dragon, and slammed my hand on it. It was a gift I had bought while strolling through the night market with Ryan on my birthday. Watching the toy puff up indignantly with its little pout, I slowly calmed down. I silently made up my mind. A duel with Jimaibo was inevitable. It's either him or me. Only one of us would walk away from this. Before I could figure out a strategy, Ryan had already taken Jimaibo out on business meetings. She used to always take me. I sent Jimaibo a WeChat message. Let's grab drinks tonight. Common banquet, huh? Cut the nonsense. Only cowards would be afraid, son. Your dad's waiting. That evening, I met Jimaibo at a small tavern near the company. When we first got our business license, Ryan and I celebrated at this very spot. Every time we closed a deal, Ryan would bring me here for a meal. Jimaibo walked in, glancing around. When he spotted me, he walked over and playfully punched my shoulder. Son, you're not even going to greet your dad? He sat down and took a sip of the craft beer in front of him. Not bad. Didn't expect such quality from a small joint like this. What do you really think about Ryan? I gripped my beer glass, watching the tiny droplets of water on the surface, but I didn't feel the cold at all. Ryan is my dream goddess. As long as I can stay by her side, I'm willing to do anything. Jimaibo tilted his head back, gulping down more than half of his beer. I like Ryan. I forced myself to calm my racing heart. It was the second time I had ever spoken this secret aloud. The first time was in the snow. The classic tale of a gentleman's pursuit of a lady, though she's an elegant woman, and I'm the suitor chasing her, even if we're brothers. But women aren't something you can just give up on. Jimaibo sat up straight, suddenly shedding his usual carefree attitude. Let's be real here. You've been by Ryan's side for so many years, and yet you're still just her male best friend. What does that tell you? Jimaibo smirked mischievously. It means Ryan doesn't love you. Suddenly, the beer in my hand felt like it had turned into a block of ancient ice, its freezing coldness seeping deep into my heart. After all this time, I was still just Ryan's best friend. In her eyes, I was never in her dating pool, was I? Jimibo shifted the conversation, and we started reminiscing about our college days. But no matter what, Ryan was always the one topic we couldn't avoid. During our late-night dorm talks, we'd always bring up the mysterious Ice Queen, the one we could never fully figure out. Jimibo had tried everything to get closer to her, taking on every part-time job she did. Eventually, I drank too much. Maybe the frustration lowered my tolerance. Liquid courage got the better of me, and I ended up calling Ryan while drunk. I don't remember what happened after that. When I opened my eyes again, I was lying on Ryan's couch. I heard noises coming from the kitchen, following the sound. I saw Ryan making porridge. She glanced back at me, smiling softly. "Sit down for a bit. It'll be ready soon." I had gotten up too quickly. My head was spinning. It felt like something out of a dream. It wasn't until a bowl of porridge was placed in front of me, with a small dish of pickled vegetables, that the steam from the hot porridge, warm and comforting, finally convinced me this was all real. Even though I was eating, I couldn't shake the feeling of dissatisfaction. Ryan's phone rang for a while. "Come pick me up. Zeely already booked the tickets." After hanging up, Ryan looked at me and said, "You're getting the day off today. Don't drink like that again. You're going on a business trip." Ryan was putting on her shoes at the door. With Jimibo, she replied. Before leaving, she turned back and said, "Just close the door behind you. Take the day to rest." My hand, holding the spoon, froze midair. The porridge in front of me started to lose its taste, becoming bland and lifeless. Something fell off. When I got to the office, I asked Zeely about the flight and hotel details. With a mysterious look, he said they only booked one room at the hotel. He gave me a knowing glance, like he was sharing some juicy gossip. I couldn't stay calm anymore. I bought the next available flight, heading toward wherever Jimibo was, that womanizer who was always good at winning women over. I couldn't predict what that scumbag would try with Ryan. When I arrived at their hotel, I spotted the two of them in the lobby, seemingly in a good mood. "Well, I'll leave you to it," Jimibo said, sitting back in his chair and patting my shoulder. "Good luck, brother." I stood there, stunned, completely frozen. What the hell did that mean? "I'm just here to bring you some documents. You left in such a hurry, you forgot them." I couldn't come up with a better excuse, so I just blurted something out. "Documents, where are they?" I pretended to rummage through my bag, knowing full well there were no documents. Must have left them in the car, maybe. Ryan followed me to the parking garage. I sat in the driver's seat, still pretending to search. Ryan stood next to me, watching. Suddenly, she opened the car door, leaning over me, half resting on my body. As she reached across to the passenger seat to search, I was so nervous that I pressed myself as far back as possible, trying to create some space between us. "What are you looking for?" I could hear my own voice, trembling with nerves. I couldn't hold back any longer. My right hand gently rested on her neck, and I kissed her. She tasted sweet, just like I had always imagined. "You finally couldn't resist, huh?" When I finally let go of her, gasping for air, still reluctant to stop, Ryan looked at me with a mix of frustration and amusement. "I was starting to think you liked men." "What on earth did I do to make you think that?" I asked. Before kissing her again, I had to show her just how dangerous it could be to be in a car alone with a man at night. I loosely held her, worried that if we got too close, she might notice my reaction. For a moment, neither of us spoke, just calming our breath and heartbeats. "Did you set this whole thing up with Jimibo to push me?" "Dream on." I needed a favor from him. "Ryan, I like you. Be with me." "I already said yes last night." Ryan smiled and kissed me on the cheek. "Last night, you grabbed me and said if I didn't agree, you'd throw yourself into traffic." Ryan laughed out loud. I awkwardly laughed along, wishing I could disappear into the ground. A 3-bedroom apartment worth of embarrassment. Well, I don't remember anything from last night, so whatever you say goes. I closed my eyes, trying to suppress the sensation of her warmth in my arms. But without sight, my other senses became even sharper. I'm willing, Ryan said, turning my head to face her. I'm saying I want to be with you. That night, I told her everything about myself. Actually, I'm sort of a rich kid too, I confessed. The president of Wrong U Group is my dad. Our company has taken on a lot of Wrong U subsidiary projects before. It was me pulling the strings behind the scenes. By day, I worked at your company, and at night, I handled Wrong U business. I just wanted to help you however I could. She nestled into my arms, smiling as she looked up at me. She said, honestly, I've had feelings for you for a while. But I was never sure if you liked me too. And I was scared that if things didn't work out, we wouldn't even be able to stay friends. Finally, Ryan began to open up about her family. Her mom and dad had started out selling grilled skewers on the street, working through rain and shine. Eventually, they earned their first fortune. Later, they opened a hot pot restaurant, and her father saw an opportunity and moved into real estate. That's when he started seeing his mistress. Her father even beat her mother in front of her, cursing as he hit, complaining that her mother was to blame, embarrassing him in public. Ryan would stand in front of her mother, taking the blows for her. But despite all that, the mistress still called her mother late at night, every night. In the end, her mother hung herself on New Year's Eve. At that time, Ryan was in middle school, and the mistress's daughter was already in 5th grade. Ryan never spoke of these things. And I never asked, because I knew, no matter what her family was like, I would always love her, and that was enough. Suddenly, I remembered that Ryan actually went back to see her father. I sat up straight. Why do you still go back? If my dad had done something like that, I would have cut him off completely. Going back to see him? That's absurd, because the company carries my mother's legacy, and I want to take it back. Ryan's smile froze, the warmth in her eyes slowly turning cold. What can I do? Having you by my side is enough. Before I could process her words, Ryan gently kissed the corner of my mouth, like a dragonfly skimming water. I pulled her into a deep kiss in return, only letting go reluctantly when I had to breathe. You really pulled off that disguise, didn't you? I can't believe I actually thought you were really saving up for a wedding fund. Ryan laughed, her head resting against my chest, her joy lighting up her face. All for the sake of marrying you. I curled my index finger, playfully nudging her. I gently tapped her on the forehead. I will definitely take back the company, Ryan said with determination, looking straight at me. Without thinking, I tightened my grip on her hand. Ryan slept soundly in my arms, occasionally snuggling closer. She slept well, but it was tough for me. It wasn't until just before dawn that I managed to drift off for a little while. Jimibo, ever the tactful one, didn't call until almost noon. He asked if we wanted to grab lunch together. In the car, Ryan and I sat in the back seat, like a couple of school kids secretly dating under the watchful eyes of their teacher. If you're going to hold hands, just do it openly. You're both adults now, don't act so shy, Jimibo teased, glancing at us in the rearview mirror. He shot us a playful glare. Fine, I won't hold back then. With that, I pulled Ryan closer and kissed her. Well, like the little wife has transformed, Jimibo joked, watching us through the mirror. Focus on driving, Ryan and I said in unison. Our destination was Jishai Group. As we walked in, Jimibo turned to me and said, I'm borrowing your wife for a bit. She needs to put on a show in front of my dad. No borrowing wives or cars, I joked. In the conference room, Ryan confidently presented the plan, detailing the collaboration between Liu Real Estate and Jishai Group. She even laid out her entire family background, not holding back any details. After a long pause, Mr. G finally said, Helping you isn't out of the question. After saying that, Mr. G glanced at Jimaibo, and I stood up, bowing respectfully. Hello, Uncle G. I'm Chu Yunfei. His father is Chu Renjin from Wrong U Group. Jimaibo impatiently added, Alright, let's say I'm helping an old friend. As we walked out, Jimaibo couldn't help but complain. Man, dealing with people in love really requires a different mindset. I can see you're a married man now. Not giving me any slack. I ignored him, instead tightening my grip on Ryan's hand. I had waited so many years to hold this hand openly, and now that I had it, I would never let go. Ryan gave me a playful, scolding look. Alright, stop showing off in front of me, Jimaibo grumbled. So boss, what's our next move? Let's scoop up what Liu Min Real Estate is leaving behind. My dad's been eyeing the logistics business lately. I can go back and talk to him about it. Before Ryan could finish, I cut in. Sounds good, brother. I thought all you cared about was chasing girls, neglecting everything else at home. Hey, all you want? But keep your hands to yourself. I caught Jimaibo's playful punch. It turned out that Liu Min Real Estate had indeed begun gathering funds, hoping to partner with Wrong U Group to develop that piece of land. It was prime real estate in a first-tier city, with both riverfront and school district advantages. That land was a gold mine, a visible piece of prime meat. And now Wrong U Group was willing to share that meat. After all, such land was something Liu Min Real Estate could never reach on its own, even if they jumped for it. The Jishai Group hadn't been idle either. They were eyeing the same piece of land. Just like Wrong U Group, they extended an olive branch to Liu Real Estate. Ryan suppressed her disgust, and her relationship with Liuzi had improved significantly. In fact, Liuzi began to believe that it was thanks to his precious daughter charming both the young heirs of Jishai and Wrong U Group that he even had a seat at the table. Uncle G and my dad agreed. If Liuzi could secure the land, they would inject capital into Liu Real Estate, so he wouldn't have to worry about the funds for the land. I was busy in the kitchen cooking, while Ryan peeled garlic beside me. Suddenly, I remembered the first time I met her family. Ryan, did I mess things up when we saw your dad last time? You could say it was a happy accident, she replied. After all, I ended up mending things with my dad after we returned. But knowing him, he'll never fully change. Ryan placed the peeled garlic on the cutting board. I like my food spicy, okay? Your wish is my command, my lady, I teased. Ryan told me more about what had been going on recently when we visited her dad. It was the first time she'd seen him since graduating from college, so a confrontation was inevitable. Meanwhile, Jimaibo had been on his blind date mission, and they even secretly had lunch with Liuzi during work hours. He put on an act of finally understanding his father's good intentions, so Liuzi started letting down his guard little by little. The only part of the plan that wasn't expected was me. Thanks to Wrong U Group's influence in the industry, things progressed so smoothly. You realized the key to all of this, didn't you? That's when I realized this is the woman I love, sharp and perceptive. If she ran things properly, this deal would be a guaranteed win. But unfortunately, Liuzi isn't that kind of person, Ryan said as she ate. We're talking about a complete stranger. Before the bids were opened, someone anonymously reported Liu Real Estate for bidding violations and attempted bribery. Coincidentally, the inspection team was visiting at the same time. The investigation uncovered a lot, including Liu Zhao's massive tax evasion. The amounts were staggering. There were also illegal demolitions and violent removals in previous projects. Liu Real Estate was suddenly on the verge of collapse. Ryan returned and fought to save the company. Using the cash reserved for bidding to cover the owed taxes, he launched a full internal investigation of the company. The deeper they dug, the more evidence of Liu Zhao's criminal activities they found. In a shocking move, Ryan turned him into the authorities. Handing over the evidence to the prosecutor's office, Liu was convicted, and I sent an audit team from Rongyu to assist Ryan with the investigation. In the end, Liu was sentenced to 20 years in prison. Although Liu real estate suffered a severe blow, it managed to survive. After the verdict was announced, Ryan and I visited Liu once. The first time I saw him, he was a refined gentleman. Now, most of his hair had turned white. Ryan, I'm sorry to you and your mother. Liu Zhao's eyes were bloodshot, his voice trembling. You've got 20 years to reflect on it slowly. Oh, by the way, that mistress you supported sold off your villa and your entire collection. And the money's already been laundered. Liu, I've made it official. We are no longer father and daughter. I came here today just to let you know. As we walked out, I held Ryan's hand, feeling it tremble slightly in mine. Without another word, Ryan pulled me away. Behind us, I heard someone cry out in despair, Ryan. But we never looked back. Ryan and I got married. I thought I would face some resistance, but to my surprise, my dad let out a sigh of relief. He said he had already prepared himself for me to live out my days alone. Thankfully, I finally managed to win my wife. On our wedding night, Ryan, still playful, teased me. I was too scared to confess, and you resisted. But weren't you the same? Eyeing my handsome looks, but too afraid to admit it. Thank you, Chu Yunfei. Because of you, I'm willing to face this world I once despised again. We always fear that taking the next step will cause loss. But we forget that only by taking that step can we stay together forever. Ryan changed her name to Sue Ryan, taking her mother's surname. And I went from being a company employee to becoming the boss. Tomorrow, I said, I'm going to show Zili and the others what it truly means to weather the storm and see the clear moon. Ryan, soft in my arms, murmured, there's no waiting for the clouds to part. The moon was always shining on you. It turns out, from the moment we met, the moonlight had already been there. The moon is shining on us.